Hello, everybody. My name's Simon Pimenta, and today I'm talking to Andrea about her recovery journey and where she is in recovery. So, hello, Andrea.
Hello, how are you, Simon?
I'm very good. First of all, just tell us where you are in the world.
Well, I'm originally from Long Island. I'm in Arizona, northern Arizona right now, and going to return to Long Island, New York in a couple months.
Amazing. And just tell us a little bit about your background, what it was you were doing before you got sick.
Uh, well, I actually retired to the Southwest, and I had one good year here. uh, but we came here because we love hiking, love Red Rock. But before that, I was a therapist, primarily substance abuse and severe psych. Those were the folks that I worked with. Um, Busy, hectic lifestyle. Many patients, and when I wasn't in the office, I was volunteering. So that was my life previous to retirement.
Right. Okay. And tell us a bit more about what happened. When did you get sick? What was the start of that experience?
Well, I caught COVID July 2022, despite being really careful. I had a cough that went on probably about the first 5 months. So that was treated in different ways. But then I also started getting weaker and weaker and weaker, heavy limbs, things like that. And I kept going to doctors, specialists, and they didn't know what was going on. I was Now I know I was describing and experiencing severe PEM, which they didn't identify, and I didn't know about, of course. So that happened for quite a while until I had a really big full-on crash after a buggy ride. I was living my best life. I was buggy riding in Sedona with a group that I started here, buggy riders, and but the next day I felt fine. When we stopped, instead of hiking, I would just lay on the desert ground and whatnot. I thought I was fine. Because I was always a person that persevered and pushed through, and so I
Yeah.
was just dealing with it. But the next day, I couldn't get up. I couldn't move at all, and that was the beginning of the end, so to speak. Although not really.
Right. Okay. And so let's just get the chronology. You got COVID in 2022, and this
Yes.
this this when did this happen? This buggy incident that.
That big crash was the February 11th, the day after I was riding, February 11th,
Okay.
23.
Okay.
And then from there, it was just up and down. I was mostly in bed since February 11th. And then I started to feel a little better June, July. And I didn't realize I was just pushing through again, and had a really bad crash in August, and that lasted until, I guess, oh boy, really bad till October. And I was spoon fed. I couldn't tolerate any light or sound whatsoever. I could hardly speak. I did caveman speak, as my husband called
Right.
it, maybe two words together. He had to do absolutely everything for me. And I was in a dark room with dark glasses and my eyes closed, and earplugs and headphones on 24/7.
Right.
So it
Okay.
did progress pretty quickly to a really terrible situation.
Right. And just what did that look like? You mentioned you were pushing through before that happened. Can you just kind of describe what that looked like for you?
Um, I, I mean, because no one could tell me what was going on, and and I left out. I also did have a 5-day stay in the hospital. And they weren't hearing post-viral illness. They weren't hearing ME or CFS. They actually said I had locked-in syndrome, which is pretty much a mental health diagnosis. I got other diagnoses prior to that as well, that I had women's issues. I needed 2,000 milligrams of vitamin C a day, just all kinds of crazy things.
So these were the explanations given for what you were experiencing.
I'm sorry. Oh, well, it was just all, they were sexist explanations or
Yeah.
mental health issues or, need for other vitamins.
Yeah, part of the explanation wasn't that you had physical things wrong with you. There was the suggestion was that you had some mental health issues or condition.
Correct.
What were there any other explanations doctors were giving for what was going on?
No.
Okay.
No, I had one primary that someone I switched to, and he did mention post-viral illness and myalgic encephalomyelitis.
Yeah. And yeah, let's just go back to the pushing through bit. What were you doing, that you now recognize you were kind of pushing through, rather than maybe responding in a more measured way? What's your sense?
I was actually just trying to live life, just trying
Right.
to enjoy my life. Water aerobics, hiking, pickleball. I mean, of course, it slowly everything fell off into
Yes.
nothing.
Yes.
But I even got tickets to the Wave in Utah, and I did that hike, and that was about 18 miles
Right.
on slick rock and all that. But later on, pushing through meant getting up to go to the bathroom.
All right. So there's two kind of explanations, but just focusing a bit on that first explanation. Were you experiencing symptoms, fatigue, etc., at the time when?
It varied so greatly, and fatigue wasn't a big part of my story. It was more
Right.
like pain and stiffness, and I couldn't do things. A lot of times the crash would come later. It would come a couple days later or the next day. Yeah, it did vary. In before the big crash, let me see, January 23, we went away to Washington State for like a Twin Peaks thing, and at that time it was very on and off. We had a hotel overlooking the beach, so you had to climb a whole bunch of stairs, and I climbed the stairs no problem, carrying suitcase and whatnot. But then another day, I felt like I couldn't hold my head up over my plate. I was going to fall on my plate.
Right.
I couldn't hold my body up. So it varied so much. We went to a national park over there, I guess Olympic National Park. And I was trying to hike and I just couldn't do it. I said to my
Right.
husband, I don't know what's going on, but I can't go any further. It was like there was a wall in front of me
Yeah. Yeah.
and I just couldn't proceed further. It was very strange.
So it sounds like sometimes you could do stuff and you felt okay, but then you got payback later, and other
Yeah.
times you very much noticed symptoms.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, what would you say was the low point? When were you at your worst?
Easily August, September, October. I mean, being in the dark, not able to handle any light or sound whatsoever. I couldn't have my pets near me. Couldn't speak hardly. I couldn't do anything at all. I was fully dependent on my husband. I was terrified, and I actually gave up hope. Fully gave up hope. I
Yeah.
told him he had to put me in a nursing home.
Right. Gosh, I'm sorry to hear that.
It's
So,
okay. It has a happy ending, Simon.
yeah, yeah. Well, and we'll come to that in a second. But with the benefit of hindsight, are there any factors? You mentioned that life was busy before you got COVID. Um, what sense do you make of that? Maybe what factors do you think contributed to you having the response to having COVID that you did?
Well, I believe I've had a really stressful, hectic life.
Hmm.
My entire life, I believe I was living in sympathetic my entire life since day
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
I grew up in a traumatic household, very abusive, and the profession I chose was extremely stressful. um, Not just what was going on with my patients, and loss of patients, but also the paperwork and the demands of documentation and Oasis and all that. Um, uh, and then moving here, even though it was joyful, it was still stressful. My
Mm.
body, I don't think my body could differentiate, even though this was happy stress. Before it was used to sitting in an office, but here I am now playing pickleball several times a week, water aerobics several times a week, hiking, making friends. I was on the board here in the park. These are still stressors to the
Yeah.
body and the mind. I don't think my body could differentiate. So I believe it's always been stressed. It's always been in this hyperactive, hypervigilant mode.
Yeah, and that's interesting that you say that, because often people I talk to recognize that that was the case, that there was a lot of stress in their lives before they got.
Yes.
So, and let's just find out, what were you at your worst? What score would you give yourself out of 10 for your health?
-10. There was nothing. I was in really bad shape. Emotionally, physically, spiritually. I was terrified. I was in fight or flight constantly.
Right. Okay. So sorry to hear that.
Okay.
So tell us about the upward journey. What are the things that you started doing that contributed to you making the progress you have? And just to be clear, you're not fully recovered yet. This is a progress story. But yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. Number one was trying to get out of fight or flight, trying to calm down my nervous system. So definitely breath work, vagus nerve work. When I was able to, yoga nidra. But of course, I wasn't able to handle screens or sound. So thankfully, I already knew how to do yoga nidra, so I could just do it by myself without being guided. That helped a lot and doesn't take any energy whatsoever. So,
Amazing, amazing. And what were the what was the consequence of that, doing that?
so slowly, I was able to tolerate a bit more, and it also started to calm down my nervous system and ease up the fight or flight sensations.
Brilliant. And what else did you do that you kind of feel made a difference?
I mean, all along I was taking all kinds of supplements, vitamins, minerals. I totally changed my diet to a healthier diet, because, I used to feed that inner child. So, I would make dinner for lunch, but then dinner would be cookies and milk or donuts or whatever I wanted, sweets and treats. Same with breakfast. Breakfast was usually really horrible, horrible choices. Ice cream sundaes, things like that. So I stopped. I stopped eating really poorly and started treating my body the way I should have all along. So also working on the inner child stuff helped a lot. Because I felt that, I worked so hard, I played so hard, I missed out on so much as a child. So that inner child was constantly looking for love in the wrong ways, especially with, food. So working on that has really helped me cut out all the sweets and whatnot.
What was the time frame from that for that? When did you start doing that work?
I mean, honestly, it's been a long journey. It's been all along, but the food part was definitely with this illness. Because I've tried in the past, and I just wasn't ready to let go of my sweets and whatnot.
And now tell us what your kind of nutrition looks like.
I've eased up a little bit. Last night for dinner I had a honey peanut butter cinnamon sandwich. Because before I was so fearful. Well, I have to cut out bread. I have to cut out, honey. There are sugars in there,
Yeah.
but they're healthy. They are healthy, healthy sweets, so to speak. And I do eat healthier bread. I never eat white bread or anything like that. But still, I'm enjoying bread. Rice, things that I had previously cut out. But I do have a much more balanced diet. Always fruits and vegetables, and I don't feel like I'm missing out. I don't feel like I'm depriving myself.
Yeah.
I feed the inner child in other ways. So
Amazing. That's great to hear. So where would you say you are now in your recovery journey? So before, you said you were, I think, -10. What score would you give to
yes.
your health out of 10 now?
Um, I'd say at least 70%, if
Right.
not more.
Right.
I've been walking in the back walkway and taking pictures of the wildlife and the flora. Um, it's really beautiful here. The
Amazing.
mountain, yeah,
So that's a massive shift. And even we talked a little while back, and I think you were telling me you were about at 50%. So even since
yeah,
then, you've made some great progress.
huge, huge. It's going very quickly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's absolutely fantastic to hear. So, what advice would you give yourself? If you could go back in time and chat to Andrea when she got COVID, what would you be saying to her?
Slow down. Slow down. Also, yeah, to truly love myself and all my actions and words and deeds. Watch what I say to myself, watch what I'm thinking. My mind is listening.
Yeah,
To make healthier food choices. Not to say that that has anything to do with this, but it's just part of my loving myself and working on my
yeah,
core harms. Um, but yeah, slow down, meditate, because I got really lazy with that. I didn't meditate anymore. So meditating, yoga nidra, um, breath work, vagus nerve work, any kind of meditation, I think is really useful for your body. I think it's so important to try to live in parasympathetic as much as possible. Give our bodies an opportunity to have some peace. Um, yeah, I think that's primarily it.
yeah. And I'm sure most people know, but the difference between the sympathetic nervous system, sympathetic is our fight flight response, and the parasympathetic nervous system healing state is what we need to be in. And can you give us a couple of examples of some of the vagus nerve work you do?
Oh wow, there's so many. I mean, any deep breathing
Right.
uh, helps with that. Number one, a lot of people like to do cold water on their face or cold water in the shower. I have a hard time with that. It's very uncomfortable. But in the shower, I will try to do it just a real quick spurt.
Yeah, yeah,
but but also there are also physical exercises. Rubbing and massaging the ears, covering the eyes, doing deep breathing with that, massaging the neck. There's lots of exercises folks can look up on YouTube. I
yeah.
also, even though um, I'm very familiar with brain retraining, from my profession. I utilize that with my patients. I still signed on to CFS school because I understood that they focused more on trauma work. And I thought, there's always more to learn. So
Yeah.
I was really curious to see what they had to offer. And they also give a lot of examples of uh, different different physical things you can do to stimulate the vagus nerve. That was very useful for me as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. And as you say, and actually, I was literally reading a book at lunchtime that was saying there are so many exercises we can do to regulate our nervous system. So people can just check that out on YouTube. But that's great to hear that you found those things helpful and beneficial. And just to drill down a bit, how long might you do breath work for meditation? Just so people get an idea.
It depends on the situation and where I am. If if I find my heart rate going up and I'm with other people, or I'm doing a little hike in the back walkway there along the gulch, then I just stand still and I'll just breathe, and I'll use positive self-talk or reframing, and that could be seconds, because I've kind of trained my nervous system now to, it reacts immediately once it gets that signal, like, okay, it's time to relax, not to raise our heart rate and get stressed out here. So pretty automatically my heart rate drops, and I feel better. It kind of regulates itself very quickly. But if I'm at home, if I'm in bed, it could be an hour.
Yeah.
I'm doing an exercise. So it varies greatly.
Yeah. Okay. So that's helpful. So a question I like to ask people is there a book that you'd recommend?
Well, I think everyone's journey is different. So I can't recommend something for other people. But what helped me a lot was Healing the Child Within, Bradshaw on the Family. And I also have a workbook that is put out through the ACOA groups. It's kind of like Alcoholics Anonymous, but it's
Right.
adult children. And they have a workbook actually, with prompts, questions, and different exercises, and drawing pictures and all kinds of things. And that workbook has really helped me a lot.
And is that a book that people can order, or is it a book that? Yeah. Okay. So I'll get the name of that and we'll pop it below this video. People want to check it out. But yeah, you make a good point. Maybe my question should have been, what book did you find helpful rather than what you'd recommend? So good distinction. And tell us what's looking forward. What's on the horizon for you?
Well, we decided, with the issues with healthcare here and whatnot, my husband needs a couple more surgeries. And I'm only getting older. I mean, I believe I'm getting healthier,
Yeah.
but I'm still getting older. And so, unfortunately, we're going to leave our dream life that that we had planned in the Southwest. So we're heading back to Long Island, but that's okay. I have three little grandkids that arrived all in a row right after we left. So we have little ones, 2, 1, and almost 5 months. So that definitely softens the blow, and we can come back. We changed our plans. But they're still basically the same. We're still gonna travel and explore and enjoy life, but it'll be from Long Island,
Right.
so it'll be the home base. But sometimes, honestly, Simon, maybe this sounds crazy, but I've read quite a lot on this journey, and um, one school of thought is that our bodies cause this for a certain reason, possibly. And I actually was wondering if one of the reasons that I got ill was because um, subconsciously, I really want to be back by my children and grandchildren. I want to be a grandma, and I want to be more participatory in
Yeah.
their lives, and more physically present, than just video chat and whatnot. So
Yeah.
I really question that,
Right.
if there was something, besides, my hypervigilant, overactive nervous system, and still having core harms and whatnot that I needed to work through, and probably still need to work through. But I really question that. I really wonder.
Right. Yeah. Well, there is a school of thought that our body communicates to us, and if we don't listen, it will turn up the symptom to get
Yep.
us to. So, that's an interesting you've got. So, final question: what tip or advice would you give to anyone who is dealing with long COVID?
Well, any of it, long COVID, ME, CFS, any of those kinds of illnesses, I believe they're pretty much the same thing. Um, Definitely number one, get off of any negative so-called support groups, because um, that kept me in fear
Yeah.
and feeling hopeless. A lot of negativity, a lot of scary things online. So really protect your brain, protect your mind, protect your thoughts.
Yeah.
Um, so that's number one. Disengage from any negative support groups.
Yeah.
Number two, work on calming your nervous system. Breath work, vagus nerve work, any kind of meditation in any form, whatever works for you. That would be number two. And number three is having faith. We can all fall into that feels like that dark pit of despair. But whatever you may have seen or heard or read, it's not true. You can get better. Have faith, persevere gently. Um, Everything happens in its own time. Uh, that's the main
Yeah.
thing. Just have faith, have hope. You
Perfect.
can get better.
I think that's a lovely message, Andrea. So thanks for sharing that, and thanks for sharing where you are in your journey.
Very grateful. Thank you so much, Simon.
You're most welcome. Bye for now.
Take care. Bye bye.